And we have reached the Zim part of the show. That means we're halfway done.
Yeah, Paul, a lot of news obviously going on, and it's important to separate fact from fiction. And we have nothing but facts for you here today. Let's check out the headlines. We're going to start in Gainesville, where Felipe Franks announced on Sunday he is leaving the Gators. He says he will either enter the NFL draft or transfer. He has 24 career starts. Now, if Franks does transfer, it would extend a trend of quarterbacks who have started for Florida this decade and ended their college careers elsewhere. Check out this list. It's kind of a scattering of NFL quarterbacks and some other names you may have forgotten. Jacoby Brissett, Jeff Driscoll, and all the way down to Will Grier. Of course, Franks' decision still pending. Speaking of quarterback transfers, South Carolina, Jake Bentley, he announced today he is leaving South Carolina. He will transfer. He's in the transfer portal. Bentley has 33 career starts, so there's a veteran quarterback out there on the market. Sticking with South Carolina, the State today, they reported that Brian McClendon, he will no longer be the Gamecocks offensive coordinator. He's going to remain on staff as wide receivers coach. The Gamecocks now looking for another offensive coordinator. Also out is quarterbacks coach Dan Warner. He has been let go. Strength coach Jeff Dillman has also been let go, according to the State. Yeah, Paul, so South Carolina, this goes back to Florida. Will Muschamp trying to find an offensive coordinator that works, and it's kind of extended on here.
Yeah, again, he's made a couple of changes in the past. I don't know where he is because he's entering in now presumably his fifth year. It looks like he is going to make it. So he's got to find an answer, but what is it?
Yeah, one name that's been floated out there is Mike Bobo, the Colorado State head coach who has ties to Will Muschamp back at Georgia. Paul, a couple other notes here with Missouri. Tight end Albert Okuaibunam has declared for the NFL draft, and quarterback Connor Bazelak, he has torn his ACL. He was going to compete for the starting job in the spring, so we hope he gets back pretty soon.
We'll be right back.
All them dogs are counting down, about to put the anchor down. Hotty toddy, who's it gonna be? Cowbells and swamp, the Aggies wrong. There's nothing like the SEC. The weekend's full of surprise.
Hit him with the flex.
From Williams by Death Valley. On the Finebaum show, Paul's on the roll. If he don't get the best of me, call Paul.
Paul.
He'll make sense of it all.
What's going on, Baba?
Needles up on Rocky Top. The Razorbacks are hard to stop. War Eagles soaring in the wind.
Let me talk, Tammy. Okay, go.
Tigers rocking in the zoo. Wildcats are grinning too. Talk about the tide that's rolling in. The weekend's full of surprises. From big upsets to rivalries. On the Finebaum show, heads are gonna roll. If they don't get the best of me, we'll call Paul. He'll make sense of it all. Yeah, call Paul.
Don't take those calls.
I could give you my address and phone number if you're ever in this neck of the woods.
This is the Paul Finebaum Show. It's not Jerry Springer, right?
The Paul Finebaum Show is presented by Regions Bank.
We welcome all of you back. Second half of the show is live and underway. It's been a very busy one, as you can imagine, on the day after, or the day after the day after. Let's get back to the calls at 855-242-7285. Pat Dye joined us earlier. Some very poignant comments from the legendary coach, some of them about his former assistant and offensive coordinator, Pat Sullivan, who passed away yesterday at the age of 69. Let's get back to the calls, and Steve is in Georgia. Hey, Steve, you're on the air.
Hey, Paul, this is Steve. First-time caller, long-time listener. Love your show.
Thank you.
I missed your lead-in, but can you tell me who's in the SEC championship game?
Yeah, that would be Florida and Kentucky.
I thought it was Alabama and Auburn, but what?
Well, hey, listen. Remember one thing: the game's at 4 o'clock on Saturday. The Alabama-Auburn conversation is going to dissipate pretty quickly.
No, I understand that. Let me ask you your thoughts: defense versus offense, 1 versus 4, play-in game. How would you rank the SEC championship versus the others in the country?
Well, it's easily the best this year. I mean, you have the 2 versus 4, 1 versus 4. I mean, I don't find the Ohio State-Wisconsin game particularly compelling because it really doesn't mean a whole lot. Probably the most important game, the two most important games are, unless you're a Georgia fan, are Baylor, Oklahoma, and Utah, Oregon. But the reason why the SEC game is the supreme game this year is that both teams are potentially going to the playoffs. We know LSU is. Georgia goes with a win. No other game has that cachet.
No, absolutely. One other question: if you were starting a program in the SEC, and you had to pick between Dan Mullen, Malzahn, Fisher, Kirby Smart, Coach O, or Stoops, who would you pick and why?
I would be torn between probably Kirby and Dan Mullen because I think Kirby is maybe the better recruiter. Mullen might be the better. Might be. They're different ends of the ball. I mean, those would be my final 2 choices, and then I would just have to think about where I am. And the reason why I wouldn't take Orgeron, I think he's a great coach, but I think he is unique to LSU.
Oh, absolutely.
Fisher, I must tell you, I'm officially worried about Jimbo Fisher. I'm not impressed with what he's done this year. I still think he can salvage the situation next year with the team he has coming back, but there's no excuse to lose the way he did Saturday night.
Yeah, that was a beat down. Love your show. You had Blythe, Georgia's finest on, Pat Sullivan. What a great person. He broke my heart in 1971 when he won Heisman, but what a great American.
I think he threw 4 touchdowns against Georgia that day. It was a memorable.
He absolutely did. Lit us up. It was a great game, but they won, and like I said,
I'll tell you this, Steve. Pat Sullivan was very. He was definitely an old guard player that he had great respect for everyone. I used to have lunch with Pat all the time when he was in Birmingham and after he retired, and just to listen to him talk about those days and the friends that he made, that he still had until he passed away yesterday, is pretty remarkable. Thank you very much for the call. Tim is in South Carolina. Hello, Tim. You're on the air.
How are you, sir?
We're doing well. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to defend, as a Clemson fan, just defend Dabo a bit here.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is this. Everyone throughout the season, and including the last handfuls of weeks, have been saying, all right, if LSU loses, they still go to the playoffs. If Ohio State loses, they still go to the playoffs. Georgia looks like a good playoff team. They're giving us reasons behind Utah, Oklahoma, and Baylor. Even you yourself with Alabama up until, obviously, this past weekend. And so what I'm saying is, Clemson, his point, I think, was we lose one game and all of a sudden we stink and we're out of the playoffs. And I believe you yourself have even said we wouldn't get into the playoffs with a loss.
No.
And what I'm saying is this. That still doesn't – I mean, I'm not a fan of this playoff system, to be quite honest. I think it's a bad system, but it is the system we have currently. We're still one of the best 4 teams. Whether we take a loss – I mean, eventually every team has to take a loss. And if you're Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, obviously the loss you take is going to be against an inferior team. Let's be realistic. 99 times out of 100, you're not playing the other guy. You're playing somebody else. So I think what he's saying is we're out if we may take a loss, but Oregon, who, oh my goodness, they have not looked great all year until they lost to Arizona, and got that second loss.
Yeah, but Tim, the difference is I understand his frustration, but what did he gain by saying it other than to sound like a whiny snot?
Well, I think his gain is like every other.
I mean, he's in the playoff with a win against Virginia, and what was accomplished other than just enhancing the opinion that some of us have of where Clemson has been. I mean, I have great respect for Clemson, but I didn't really need to hear that on Saturday afternoon, nor do I need to hear anybody defending them. Amy is in Birmingham. You're on the air. Hello, Amy.
Hi, Paul. It's so good to talk with you today.
Thank you.
And I am a first-time caller as well. And I'm mainly calling for a couple of reasons. One, I am locally here in Birmingham, Alabama, but I am from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Go Tigers. Alumni there of LSU, both my husband and myself, and we've been in Birmingham 5 years. And we were there as juniors at LSU when Saban helped us win our national championship in 2003. And so, of course, heartbroken when he left us, and then, of course, always felt that little bitter tinge of anger that he did leave us and then eventually to come coach here at Alabama. But just want to call and just say how proud I am of Joe Burrow and Coach O and the whole team and the whole staff. I thought Saturday's game against Texas A&M was remarkable from start to finish, our offense and our defense. And I thought just it was super special at the beginning, the way that Joe Burrow wore the Cajun spelling of his name.
No,
on his
you're right.
jersey.
Listen, Amy, I thought that was absolutely fantastic. I mean, Joe Burrow has impressed me more than any player I've seen in a very long time. Amy, thank you very, very much. I mentioned a minute ago that I'd heard today that John Daly, who's been a friend of ours on this program and just one of the most just enjoyable people to be around I've ever met, was out there pushing the Lane train to Fayetteville. And I looked down, and John has joined us for a moment to give his opinion. A big Arkansas fan. Of course, he played golf there. John, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, you bet, Paul. How you doing?
I am doing great, and I miss seeing you and talking to you, but there's nothing better than to talk to you about Razorback football. And so tell us what you hear and what you think ought to happen.
Well, I mean, I'm hoping. I mean, you know, I think I would love for Lane to come. We're pretty good friends, and he knows the SEC, you know, better being under Saban and, you know, at Tennessee. And I just think he'd be a great fit. It was, you know, my picks were him, and I was kind of hoping Rex Ryan might have had a chance too.
He is a good guy.
back.
I know Rex. Rex would be really – maybe Rex will come as a coordinator.
Well, he said he'd bring his brother, but, you know, I don't know. Those are my two favorite picks, but Lane would just, you know, he would change it probably quicker than most coaches would, and, you know, we got to get the passion back at Arkansas. And
well, John, let me ask you this, because we had a guest on earlier that wondered whether Lane would take the job if offered. You seem to know more than all of us. What do you think?
He's not telling me much. I just been bugging him for the last 3 or 4 days. Please come to Arkansas. But you know, he's not saying too much about it. But he never said no, and he hasn't said yes. But you know, I think he's the one that I think can turn our program around. But I feel like it's going to take 3 years. You know, it's just sad to see Arkansas football this way. And I love Chad Morris, and I love Coach Bielema, and it's a shame they couldn't get it done. But, you know, I think Lane can, and we just got to give him time if he does come.
No, John, listen, we always enjoy talking to you, and I think you're saying what you've said publicly makes a big impact. Have you expressed your thoughts to the people that matter at Arkansas?
Oh, yeah, me and Hunter. I've texted Hunter. I gave him Lane's number.
I like
He
that.
didn't ask for anything. I gave him Rex Ryan and Lane's number, and I said these are the two guys that my personal opinion would be someone that could change the program. But, you know, it just be – I think he was the right guy for the job, and whether he takes it or not, I just want him to know, and he already knows that I'd love for him to come to the Hill and change our program around. But I got a question for you.
Yes.
And it's been bugging me since South Carolina beat Georgia. And South Carolina wasn't ranked at the time they beat Georgia. Now, Alabama gets beat by LSU. Alabama was, 5? And LSU was 1 at the time, or were they 2?
No, Alabama wasn't Alabama number 1 at the time? Or 2?
Well, they might have been number 1. LSU's number 2. But what I
Yeah,
don't
they were 1 and
understand
2, I
is-
think. Or 1 and 3.
Right. So why would Alabama fall out of the top 4? Look, I respect the SEC. Why would they fall out of the top 4 getting beat by the number 2 team when, and no disrespect to Georgia, they're a great football team, South Carolina beats them and they stay in the race.
You know, John, I have raised that question a number of times about why Georgia did not have to pay for that loss, and the experts have told me, and the people on the Bill Hancock, who runs the committee, said it's because of their strength of schedule. They beat Notre Dame, they beat Florida, and they beat somebody else. But I have to say you're right. Maybe even Dabo made that point after the game, even though we had some fun with them. But I mean, now it doesn't make much difference. So, and by the way, they went on the road and beat Auburn, so they have acquitted themselves with a couple of very quality wins. Well, tell me about you. What's been going on with you? Are you? I know that you had some issues around the time of the Open, but are you feeling better?
Yeah, I had knee surgery about 4 weeks ago. They replaced the knee. My kneecap was rotted out. Dr. Moore at Little Rock did my knee surgery. And he did the scan about 3 weeks before we did the surgery, or 4 weeks before we did the surgery, and he didn't want to tell me. I couldn't have heard it any worse, so I'm glad he didn't tell me. But the whole kneecap was rotted out.
Oh my goodness!
And I played 3 tournaments on it. Played okay, and then got back, did the surgery. Been 4 weeks tomorrow. They replaced the whole inside of the right knee with titanium and chrome with plastic and the kneecap. So I've been just rehabbing, sitting here in Clearwater, Florida, where it's warm.
Well, listen, John, I appreciate. I happen to be a fan of Lane as well, and no Rex, one of the all-time characters. I'm glad you chimed in on this because I think your voice will carry, and let's see what happens. But come back soon to the show.
Oh, you bet, anytime. And I wish LSU and Georgia the greatest of luck. I root for the SEC if the Hogs aren't in it, and the SEC football, and go Hogs go. And love you, Paul.
John, I feel the same about you. Thank you very, very much. Again, John Daly, the legendary Arkansas golfer, won a couple of majors, won the PGA and the British Open, and one of the most colorful and charismatic athletes to ever play on the PGA Tour, has pretty well endorsed a full-throated endorsement of Lane Kiffin here to be the next Arkansas football coach. How about that? Right here. We'll take a break. More to come as we continue on a Monday afternoon. So get them off the schedule. Notable changes the day after beating Arkansas. Bama dropped from 1 to 2. LSU beat Arkansas, dropped from 1 to 2. Missouri beat Arkansas, fired Barry Odom. Arkansas has definitely played a role in the SEC this year. And now what's going on? So, again, John Daly endorsing Lane Kiffin to be the next Arkansas coach. Will Hunter Yurachek respond or not is the question du jour. But that was certainly breaking news here, guys.
That was great. I mean, John Daly calling in, big Arkansas fan.
I don't know how he got through.
Yeah, that was the best part. He called the regular number. So for all those people that say, like, there's a special number, he called the one you see on the bottom of your screen.
Call Paul.
Call Paul. So, Paul, my question is, when you have high-profile fans and other people making cases for coaches, and maybe that coach doesn't work, does that affect a fan base or not?
Normally it would not. I've seen this before, but in this case it may for this reason. This is such a beaten-down program where people are not going to games. So if you get a Bobby Bones, who I think has done the same thing, the most influential person in country music, you get John Daly, who has a tremendous following. You can get the powers that be, who may be at an impasse. Remember, they've had 4 or 5 weeks to look over the coaching search. The reason why people aren't moving right now, it's a chess game. A number of coaches are in championship games, including Norvell, including Lane Kiffin, and that could be why nobody has hired a coach yet.
Yeah, from what we're seeing on social media today, Arkansas might have a problem on its hands if it doesn't hire Lane Kiffin, because there seems to be so much enthusiasm for this hypothetical that has kind of spreading. I think it started with some fake accounts, but there's still some smoke there. Not quite enough fire yet, but
listen, I mean, how many times you bring a coach in that doesn't fire up anyone? Lane Kiffin will get everybody fired up.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Paul.
He's also got a resume. This guy's coach, he's had 4 head coaching jobs.
Right. Outside of the X's and O's, what do you think the most important attribute a coach has to be successful at Arkansas? Is it that question?
Well, you have to develop talent, because that's not Arkansas is not a place that. Remember last year they came in 20th in recruiting, and that was like the best ever.
Yeah.
So making the right decisions. So we're back. Glad you're with us. From Pat Dye to John Daly, and the show still has another hour and 40 minutes to go. Let's continue with more phone calls and check in with Gavin in Pittsburgh. Hey, Gavin, you're on the air.
How you doing, Paul? I just wanted to call in. First off, what a great win by my Tigers on Saturday. Auburn really showed me that they can get behind Gus Malzahn, and that game solidified his spot, and I no longer think he's going to Arkansas anymore.
No, I don't either.
But I called in because I wanted to hear your opinion on Bo Nix. See, I loved him coming out of high school. He was Alabama's Mr. Football. I thought he was going to do great things. We let Joey Gatewood walk into the transfer portal, and I wanted to see your opinion on him and see if, like, in the next 2 years, can he take Auburn to that next level and win us a national championship?
Bo Nix has a chance to be a serious Heisman contender. I mean, he did all this as a freshman. And one thing that you said, and I've had a few Alabama fans tell me, and they weren't joking, that they hate playing in Auburn, and they hate playing in Auburn for the reasons we saw Saturday. They're, for all the LSU, Florida conversation, everyone has a great home field. I mean, I've been to both those. I've been to that stadium for 30, 40 years. I've never seen anything quite like that game in terms of the scene. I mean, it's downright scary. How intimidating
a nasty place to play.
I mean, it's just. I mean, I've never seen Nick Saban look very comfortable in that stadium, and I've seen him walk into Tiger Stadium in the past and look very, very at ease.
Oh yeah, definitely. Nick Saban looked a little rattled after that first half.
He looked more than rattled.
Oh yeah, definitely more than rattled. Anybody can say what they want about that field goal at the end of the second quarter, going into halftime. But you know what? What's done is done. We're past that.
That did not win the game for Auburn. I mean, that was. I mean, listen. Alabama's got a 7-minute drive. They get another first down. They punch it in. The game's over. I don't see Auburn.
Yeah.
That's when Bo Nix would have been. I think the pressure would have been just too much. He's a great player, but he's done that before. But that would have been a very difficult thing to do. Mike in Georgia, you're on the air.
Thank you, Paul. I told myself that I was not going to call, that I was simply going to digest everything today and then, hash it for tomorrow. But having John Daly on there got me so excited, I just had to call and thank you all for putting him on. It was fantastic. It was really great. And with Daly, other than Tiger, who's like the Pied Piper, fans follow him everywhere, all over the course, in droves. Daly's got that kind of same personality. I mean, he's beloved. I mean,
hey Mike, I can't remember the year.
It
was the early '90s. I guess it was '92 maybe, because Daly won the PGA. I followed John Daly around his first round when I covered Augusta for many years for a newspaper, and it was the craziest thing I've ever seen. I mean, he was bombing at places no one had ever seen. I mean, Tiger had not shown up yet. Remember? I mean, John Daly at Augusta National. I mean, just the idea that this guy who literally lives out of the back of his car showing up at the hallowed ground of Augusta National was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
It was great. I was at a practice round and saw him hit some drives, and the sound of that ball, the way it came off the tee. I know they do it regular these days, but at that time it was something new, so it was really great. But anyway, I'm glad you got him on, and if there is a such thing as a special number, Paul, you better give it to him, because it'd be great if he called in anytime.
Oh, no. I mean, he's such a sports fan. I mean, listen, I've had conversation with him, and I'm not getting politics in there, but I mentioned this once before. I was in New York about 2 years ago and ran into Bill Clinton, and we spent 30 minutes talking about Arkansas football and basketball. And, I mean, those are guys that, listen, one's a former president, one's a former PGA great. But when it comes to the passion for that football program, it is unmatched. Hey, thank you very, very much for the call. Great conversation there. Let's check in with Charlie, who is in Alabama. Hello, Charlie.
Hey, Paul. First-time caller, long-time listener.
Thank you.
Going back back when I graduated from the University of Alabama back in '76. Followed you early days in Birmingham up to now. So thanks for taking my call.
Appreciate it.
I had a couple comments, and then I'd like to hear your opinion on it. Haven't heard anybody really say anything about, this game had, the Alabama-Auburn game had so many twists and turns. Could have gone either way so many different times. But one in particular, I wanted your opinion. When Alabama had the ball, first and goal, it was either the 2 or 3 yard line.
Mm-hmm.
Why did they throw the ball on first down?
I don't know. I mean that was one of the most peculiar Steve Sarkisian plays of the year, and quite frankly, there have been a few.
Well, you had Najee Harris, who was having an unbelievable day, and it just blew my mind that they didn't try to punch it in at least a play or so. And I thought it was I guess what point I'm making, yeah, it was a terrible coaching decision. It certainly wasn't Mac Jones, but
it was. Charlie, listen, thank you. That's one that I think. If you had to pick a point in the game that Alabama let it go, it was right there, because I think they would have had a 12 or 13 point lead depending on how they handled the conversion. Okay, so what happened over the weekend at Ole Miss following the ugly incident on Thursday night at the Egg Bowl? We'll try to decipher it for you.
It's a hard day, but as we announced yesterday, we've decided to make a change in our football leadership. With the support and consultation of Chancellor Boyce, and after meeting with Coach Luke, we felt that we needed to move forward in a different direction and inject new energy into the program. Following Thursday's game, I spent a couple of days taking a hard look at the totality of Matt's tenure as head coach. While you can see progress in certain areas, we are not experiencing enough success on the field. From a recruiting, academic, and overall culture standpoint, Matt did a tremendous job, and we will always be grateful for his leadership. However, as I said yesterday, winning is important, and we know that we can win at Ole Miss and compete for championships. Another factor was lack of support. Entering the Egg Bowl, we were optimistic that a strong finish to the season could build momentum. However, after stepping away from the emotion of Thursday and evaluating the team as a whole, it was evident that the apathy surrounding the program was too much to overcome. We felt it was important to find new leadership that could take this team to the next level, not only from building on our culture, but also translating to wins on the field. Again, we can't thank Coach Luke enough for stepping into a time when our program was at its lowest point. What he has accomplished here as a student-athlete, assistant coach, and head coach will never be forgotten, and we certainly wish him the best moving forward. Our search for a new head coach is underway. We've engaged Ventura Partners to assist in this process of identifying the strongest candidate and the best fit to lead our program. We would prefer a sitting head coach or Power 5 coordinator, but more than anything, we want energy, passion, and a track record for success. We want a program builder who can galvanize and help unite Rebel Nation. As was clear with this season, there's a lot of talent on this roster, and those players in a destination school like Ole Miss, this is a very attractive job, and we look forward to working quickly and efficiently to find our new head coach. Mike McIntyre will take over and be in charge of the team in the interim period. I spoke with him this morning, and he was more than willing to do that. The assistant coaches are on the road right now, and what we've told them is to please just go in and continue the visits, wear the Ole Miss logo, continue to spread the Ole Miss message, and they've been great. The assistants have been great. This is a hard time for them as well, obviously. But absolutely, as we talk to a new coach, we will encourage the new coach to look at this staff. I think this staff has done a tremendous job in a lot of ways. And I think there's some pieces on this staff that could be very beneficial to a new staff, potentially.
So one of the bigger surprises of the postseason, which is only 2 days old, was the firing of Matt Luke on Sunday night. Let's get the whole story from Nick Suss, who covers the Rebels for the Clarion Ledger. Nick, thank you very, very much. Let's try to figure this all out, unpack it, and explain to us what happened and why.
Yeah, I mean, Paul, it kind of started over the weekend. There were rumblings, as there always are, and it seemed as if the court of public opinion had turned against Matt Luke after the Egg Bowl and how hard the loss was for some Ole Miss fans with the circumstances of the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty and the missed PAT. And then Keith Carter, the athletic director, pretty much came out and said today that he felt as if the ceiling was met and there was too much fan apathy, and that even if Matt Luke started to turn it around and had 6 or 7 wins next year, he doesn't think that this program would generate the sort of excitement that he needs to run a successful program. So when that happens and when the win-loss record gets worse from year 1 to year 2 to year 3, you start to consider a coaching change. So
didn't he? Hold on
yeah.
a second. Didn't that guy you just quoted say last week everything was going well?
Yeah, about 10 days ago, he said that Matt Luke was who they were going to be progressing forward with. So obviously something changed, and I asked him today directly what changed, and he pretty much said that it was a sense of he thought more about it and he changed his mind, which people are always entitled to change their mind, but really the only thing that's changed in the last 10 days is Ole Miss lost by 1 point because they missed an extra point that would have sent the game to overtime. There's no telling what would have happened if that game went to overtime or if Ole Miss had made any number of mistakes that they made disappear. But yeah, 10 days ago, Matt Luke was secure in his job, and now he is a free agent on the market.
Okay, Nick, listen, you're a good reporter. I doubt you're taking everyone for face value. What really happened?
What really happened is, Keith came out and said directly that he has not taken any money from boosters for the buyout. So all the people who want to come in and say this was a money issue, it may have been, but the athletic department is maintaining that was not the case. What really happened is I think that fans have really, really not wanted Matt Luke to be here, and they've spoken with, not going to games and not sending in donations and all of that stuff. And what I hear as apathy is that Keith comes from a fundraising background. Ole Miss is at a point where it needs to generate some revenue, it needs to generate some excitement, and I don't think the Matt Luke era, no matter how quickly and how positive it looked that things were going to turn around, that wasn't generating the type of excitement the athletic department wants.
I realize everything in Mississippi is a bit of a chess game, but the fact that Moorhead is staying at Starkville, you help me understand. It almost seems like Ole Miss fans are looking at that as more of an opportunity maybe. Did they say, if he's staying there, we need to get a coach who can beat him?
I think that's entirely possible. If you were following the rumor mill Thursday night, it seemed like it was a done deal that Moorhead was going to be out, win or lose in the Egg Bowl. And then obviously the next day rolls around, Saturday rolls around, whenever it was, and State comes out and says, we are for sure keeping Joe Moorhead on staff as the head coach for another year. So everything is based around this Egg Bowl competition.
And by the way, why are they keeping him other than winning a game that seems inconsequential outside of in terms of the program? It's not going to help him undo some of the mistakes he's made. It's just a game against a 4-8 team.
The logical answer would be to say that he's gone to bowls 2 years in a row, but the emotional answer is he won the Egg Bowl. And just like Matt Luke in 2017, he won the Egg Bowl when he was the interim coach, and then a couple of days later he gets the full-time job. There is something about that game in this state that people can really sway their emotions based off of it.
And by the way, I don't want to act like I'm living in another planet. I understand the importance of that game. If they had just lost the game and we didn't have the dog urination incident afterwards, you think Matt Luke would still be there? Do you think that was the moment that people just were so appalled by?
Personally, I think that's a strong possibility. I don't know if it was the incident or the missed PAT or the combination of both, but just the way those final 10 minutes of the game went down, where you pull the quarterback who's the most popular player on the team to bring in a guy who you'd benched 8 weeks ago, and he leads the comeback and things look good, and then you let the comeback disappear in what has to have been the only time a game has ever ended like that in the 150 years of college football. I don't know. I think that if they had lost in a more conventional way, maybe Keith would have kept pat with the company line he had 10 days ago. But if he truly believes the arguments he came out and said today, the apathy and the win-loss record, those would have been absolutely the same now as they were before the Egg Bowl.
Okay. Who's on the list of potential candidates to replace Matt?
The top name that everybody's throwing around is Mike Norvell out at Memphis, and obviously he's going to be a hot commodity this season with schools like Florida State showing some interest in him as well. But since Ole Miss is right up the road, or right down the road, I guess, from Memphis, Ole Miss seems to think they might have an inside track in attracting Norvell. If it's not him, Billy Napier's name has been thrown around a lot from University of Louisiana, and then you'll hear Eli Drinkwitz from App State and Bill Clark from UAB and Willie Fritz from Tulane. Most of the high-producing G5 coaches that you'd think are having their names thrown around, but it seems like at this point Norvell is the A1 choice from the Ole Miss perspective.
What's the feeling on Norvell other than his name is being mentioned for every job in America? I mean, I realize Ole Miss thinks they have an inside track, but where else is he linked to? I mean, I've heard him at FSU, Arkansas, and who knows where else.
Yeah, I can't speak too much for why Florida State or why Arkansas think it would be a good fit, but from covering Ole Miss, it seems like they like his connection to the area since he's recruited the Memphis area and the North Mississippi area. That really is Ole Miss's pipeline and offensive success from his days in the Pac-12 and also succeeding at Memphis. And the number one qualification they want is experience as a head coach, which is something that Matt Luke lacked before he took the job at Ole Miss, and maybe that was what some fans are blaming Luke's lack of success on.
Well, Mississippi never disappoints.
Yes, that is very true, Paul.
Nick, thanks a lot. We'll stay in touch as this coaching search unfolds. Always great to talk to you.
All right, thanks, Paul.
You got it, Nick Suss, great reporter down there in Mississippi on how things changed very quickly in Mississippi. We are heading to a break. More of your phone calls after this. Miss job, what about it? Guys, I want to get your opinion on the worth of this job.
That's a good question. I mean, that's a bigger question than who's going to take it almost at this point.
You have, Paul, you've mentioned it before. You have like Archie Manning back there. You have the legacy. You've had winning recently within the last, couple years, beating Alabama twice in the Nick Saban era. So you have some tradition that you can try to build off of from there. Who do you go after? I mean, we heard in the presser before Nick came on that they're looking for an established coach or a Power 5 assistant that has a dynamic personality. Does anybody stick out in your mind?
Listen, I did a show in Memphis today, and Norvell really can choose wherever he wants to go or stay in Memphis. I mean, let's be honest. If you're in Memphis right now, why do you go to Ole Miss or Arkansas?
Well, I think if you're in
Power
Memphis,
5, it's the SEC.
Yeah, but come on.
Your recruiting base is the same.
How successful have people been going to Arkansas lately?
Fair enough.
I think that Chad Morris hire was
my point
just
being,
bad anyway.
if he doesn't get FSU, he could wait for another job to come open. And I mean, I think you have to be smart. Ole Miss is not a sure thing.
No, but it's a chance to be on the national stage in a much bigger way than you're ever going to be with Memphis.
The guy just had College Game Day downtown. They had 20,000 people. I mean, all I'm saying is Memphis is a pretty good job. He may be playing Alabama in the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah, but isn't that just the kind of the ceiling for Memphis? I mean, that's as good as it's going to get.
Well, my point is, it may be the ceiling for Memphis, but if you're a good coach, you go where you want to go. If you're this guy versus
right.
Oh, hey, there's a job opening in Ole Miss, I'll go grab it and have to deal with LSU and and A&M and Alabama every year.
There's pretty much everything to love about the Ole Miss job except the fact that it's the competition in the SEC West, right? Like I would say Florida State's a more desirable destination just because you only have to go.
There's no question.
Beat one team.
You just have to finally wonder how good are these jobs.
But it's a Power 5 job in the SEC.
Listen,
Granted,
I'm aware. Thanks for the.
Well, no, I'm saying like if you're at Memphis and you're right, this could be the ceiling for Memphis. Whereas if you're
Memphis
given time,
is a pretty good athletic program right now in basketball and football, and it's it's not because I'm from there, but you don't have to answer to too many fat cat boosters who got Matt Luke fired. Anyway, welcome back. Glad everyone is here. And let's continue with your phone calls at 855-242-7285. Pate is up next in Oxford, Mississippi. Pate, you're on the air.
Hey, Paul, how you doing today?
Doing great. Thank you.
So I was just calling. Nick kind of hit on it a lot. I wanted to get your opinion on the coaching situation at Ole Miss. Do you think that was handled correctly to get rid of Coach Matt Luke at this point after this season, or would you have rather seen him wait until next season? What are the pros and cons of that situation?
Well, listen, there's no good. I've always been a big believer when the worm turns, make a change. Don't wait till next year what you can do this year, because you're losing 2 years. You're losing a recruiting class. And, again, Mississippi State made the decision they wanted to make. Vanderbilt made the decision. South Carolina. A year from today, let's see how all three of those work out, okay? But Ole Miss, as much as I like Matt Luke personally, he still went 4-8.
Yeah.
And that's hard to live with.
Yeah, I've been the word around campus and everything, as Nick said, Mike Norvell out of Memphis, Mike Leach, Washington State. I've even heard Les Miles coming back to the SEC
let's not get
Kansas.
Crazy here, okay?
I've even heard that today. I mean, there's all
No,
kinds.
well, listen, if you
heard.
heard Les Miles, you were in a bar at closing time.
Well, Arkansas, as much as they hear want Lane Kiffin, I mean, that's the word around here too. So, I mean, it's really anybody's ball game, I guess, from a campus perspective.
Glad to hear from you. Thank you very, very much. Good stuff. Let's continue. I-Man is up next. I-Man, welcome to our program.
Good afternoon, Paul. I mean, are y'all on this time every day? I mean, is this something regular?
No, we're on Monday. This is we're the show on that's only on Monday.
Only on Monday. I mean, I was flipping the channels. I mean, I just run across it, and I thought I knew you, and I thought this was an Alabama program, but I don't see no Alabama fans. You know, Paul, what a hell of a ball game. That was one for the ages. I could rub it in, and I could say a lot of things, but I'm not going to do it because I respect my brothers and my sisters who happen to be Alabama fans. They have no respect for anybody, but I do. And you know what, Paul? I could run down there and get me one, but I'd rather walk down and get them all. War damn Eagle. Paul, do Auburn fans really have to have Alabama's permission to celebrate?
I'm glad you mentioned that. Where are the Alabama fans today?
I mean, I'm not poking.
I mean, we had one or two that gave the usual.
But, I mean, normally they're in here talking about the playoffs and that kind of thing. I mean, I figured there'd be more playoff conversations.
Well, you heard the one that said, "We'll be fine." We got Nick Saban.
Well, I mean, last I heard, Friday and Thursday and Wednesday, going backwards, because I can actually do that instead of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But I mean, I thought Bama was going to make a statement. They made one. They can't count to 11. You don't know what 1 second is. And you go out there and you play back and forth, you play back and forth, you play back and forth. When the zeros are on the damn clock, guess what that means? Game over. 48-45. 48 points.
Mm-hmm.
48 points. That's damn near half 100. 100, Paul.
By the way, I mean, I don't know if I told you this. I thoroughly enjoyed seeing you on Friday.
I had the best time over there seeing you.
We
Paul.
had a
I
long
appreciate
conversation,
you so much.
and I finally, when the security came over and said, "You want me to remove that man from the premises?" I said, "No, he's a friend."
I didn't have one of them badges. I mean, every time I turned around, I noticed everybody had a damn badge around their neck but me. Next time I see you, I'm going to have me one. War damn Eagle, Paul, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you very much. Harold is up next on our Monday night show.
Good afternoon, Mr. Finebaum.
Hello,
and
Harold.
I really appreciate you calling me, letting me get on your air.
I'm glad you made it.
I don't have that personality of I-Man and some of your other callers, but I'm one of your oldest. I'm the old 93-year-old
Oh, my goodness.
World War II Navy
I remember
veteran
you.
and an LSU alumnus.
I'm thrilled you called.
And I've got a prediction on who I think the Final Four and where they play. I've got LSU and Clemson playing in Atlanta on December the 28th, and Ohio State. I'm projecting Oklahoma to slip in as the number 4 team, and that's provided we beat Georgia on this Saturday. I think we're a little better, but, that's not a neutral field where we're playing Saturday.
No, it's
not. It would
not.
be neutral if we were playing anybody except Georgia, but it's kind of a home field, the second home field for Georgia.
There's no question it is.
Well, what do you think? What do you think's going to happen this Saturday in Atlanta? And I'm going to hang up and see what you think about my projection on the Final Four. And I appreciate your call.
Thank
Have a
you
good
very,
day.
very much, Harold. That is fantastic. Great to have you on. Okay, imagine a 93-year-old veteran. That definitely gets me going there. Pete is up next in Louisiana. Hey, Pete. Pete, you there?
Hey, yeah, how you doing?
We're doing great.
Fantastic. Paul, I just wanted to make a comment for you. I'm a first-time caller, and I was listening to you earlier, and when you made the comment about Clemson, in your opinion, probably being one of the strongest, if not the strongest team in the Final Four, and that the other 3 teams probably would not be looking forward to playing against them. And I got to kind of take exception to that because I think Clemson really has been highly overrated and probably shouldn't be ranked more than about 7th or 8th, to
Really?
be honest with you.
Okay.
I know they're undefeated, but they come from the weakest conference out of the Power 5. And, you look at the last 2 or 3 years, they've only had to prepare for 1 or 2 teams each year, and that's in the semifinals or the finals.
They've done pretty well in those games.
And I think if Clemson played as a member of the Southeastern Conference or a member of the Big Ten, they probably wouldn't do better than 8-4 or 9-3 any year that they
Now,
played.
Pete, listen, you're forcing me to do something I don't want to do, and that's defend Clemson. Do you have any idea what their record is against the SEC in the last 4 or 5 years?
I'm not really sure.
I'll tell you
but I
what
would
it
have
is.
to
They've beaten
say
every
probably
team but
take a look at it
Alabama.
Other than playing Alabama,
They have destroyed. They've destroyed South Carolina. They beat
LSU.
LSU a couple of years ago. They beat Georgia. Come on. I'm not going to sit here and let somebody trash Clemson's resume when it's as good as anyone in the country, and maybe better. I know it's fun to say that, and I've joked about Dabo, but they can back it up at Clemson.